It's the early 1990s. Runways are dominated by glossy perfection. Cindy, Claudia, Naomi. Then, a woman walks in and stops the room cold. Pale skin like marble, hair shorn into stark black, eyebrows shaved clean, cheekbones so sharp they could wound. She doesn't look like the beauty standard. She looks like the enemy of it. This is Kristen McMenamy, the model critics once dismissed as too strange, too unconventional. The woman who would dare to let her hair turn silver while the industry begged her to dye it. The face that designers like Versace and photographers like Steven Meisel would call a living work of art. How did a girl, once rejected by fashion's gatekeepers, become the muse who shattered its rules? How many times did she have to fall, only to rise again, more radical than before? Kristen McMenamy was not born into glamour. She grew up in Easton, Pennsylvania, a place far removed from Parisian runways and glossy magazine covers. The world around her was ordinary, but Kristen was not. Tall, angular, and awkward by the standards of the time, she didn't fit the mold of the all-American beauty the industry loved in the 1980s. When she first stepped into modeling, agents looked at her with skepticism. Too quirky, too severe, too far from the commercial polish they believed clients wanted. In an era that celebrated symmetry and safe beauty, Kristen's sharp edges seemed like a mistake, but rejection only sharpened her resolve. She knew that what set her apart was not a flaw. It was power waiting to be claimed. Beneath the red hair she wore in her early career and the quiet demeanor she carried, something was simmering, a rebellion, a desire to flip the very definition of beauty on its head. And soon, that transformation would arrive. The fashion world of the early 90s was a cathedral of perfection. Naomi Campbell's walk was thunder. Claudia Schiffer's face was porcelain. Cindy Crawford's smile was America's dream. These women represented the pinnacle of flawless beauty, a beauty that reassured, that fit neatly onto billboards and magazine covers. And then came Kristen McMenamy. She was tired of being overlooked, tired of hearing that her looks were awkward or unmarketable. So she did the unthinkable. She cut off her long auburn hair, dyed it black as ink, and shaved off her eyebrows. She stripped herself of the pretty that agencies begged her to maintain and replaced it with something raw, alien, unforgettable. The gamble was insane. In an era where models lived and died by their beauty, Kristen willingly dismantled hers. Agents gasped. Some clients refused to book her. But when she walked into a casting with her new face, stark, hollow, almost otherworldly, something shifted. She didn't look like anyone else in the room. She didn't even look like anyone from this planet. Steven Meisel saw it immediately. Through his lens, Kristen's sharp cheekbones became sculptural. Her blank brows turned her face into a living canvas. Photographers whispered about her intensity. She could transform a shoot into theater. Versace booked her for shows where she looked less like a model and more like a performance artist. Karl Lagerfeld admired her defiance. Suddenly, Kristen wasn't a mistake. She was a message. And that message was clear. Beauty did not have to comfort you. It could disturb you. It could provoke you. It could make you question why you found something captivating at all. By 1993, Kristen had gone from too strange to Harper's Bazaar's Model of the Year. The girl from Pennsylvania, once dismissed as too angular, too odd, had become the face of fashion's avant-garde rebellion. She was no longer simply wearing clothes. She was rewriting the script of beauty itself. But the higher you climb, the sharper the fall. For a few dazzling years, Kristen McMenamy was untouchable. The model who had turned rejection into revolution. Yet the fashion world is fickle.
and its love affairs burned fast. By the mid-1990s, the industry was chasing a new obsession: commercial faces, glossy campaigns, the kind of beauty that could sell perfume in suburban malls. Kristen's severe look, once the cutting edge, suddenly felt too extreme. Casting directors who had once applauded her bravery now frowned. "She's brilliant," they whispered, "but too much." Slowly, the calls stopped coming. Covers that once belonged to her went to younger, safer models. The same critics who had crowned her a muse now muttered that she had been a phase, an experiment the industry had outgrown. For Kristen, it was a cruel twist. The woman who had redefined beauty was now being punished for sticking to it. And rejection this time cut deeper. She wasn't just an outsider trying to break in. She was a star, watching her throne being dismantled. She had tasted power, felt the cameras worship her, only to see the spotlight shift away with brutal indifference. The whispers grew louder. Clients said she was hard to book, that her look was alienating. Behind the curtains, tabloids painted her as eccentric, a model too unpredictable for a market that wanted control. Even her personal life, her romances, her private choices became fodder for gossip. Fashion's dark queen was now cast as a liability. By the late 1990s, Kristen vanished. No runways, no campaigns, just silence. In a world where absence is equivalent to death, she seemed to have disappeared entirely. Younger faces like Kate Moss and the heroine chic wave swept over the industry, burying Kristen under a new definition of beauty she hadn't authored. Yet in that silence, something powerful was forming. Because Kristen McMenamy had never been the kind of woman to bow out quietly. Her story wasn't over.
When Kristen McMenamy returned, she did not come back begging for relevance. She came back as herself, completely, unapologetically. Gone was the jet black hair of her youth. In its place, she let her natural silver streaks flow, a crown of defiance in an industry obsessed with eternal youth. At first, people gasped. A model with gray hair? It was unheard of. But Kristen wasn't just modeling clothes anymore. She was modeling an idea, that beauty had no expiration date, and authenticity was more powerful than dye and denial. Designers noticed. Nicolas Ghesquière tapped her for Balenciaga. Karl Lagerfeld invited her back to Chanel. Younger photographers, hungry for raw truth, called her a muse. The same magazines that once turned away from her now hailed her as an icon who had the courage to age in public. For Kristen, this wasn't a comeback, it was vindication. Every rejection, every dismissal, every fall had led to this moment, where her very refusal to conform became the thing fashion couldn't resist. She hadn't just survived a system, she had bent it to her will. Kristen McMenamy's legacy is not measured in the number of covers she graced or the campaigns she booked. It lies in the rupture she created, a crack in fashion's polished mirror that let something stranger, bolder, truer shine through. She proved that beauty didn't have to be sweet or symmetrical. It could be sharp, unsettling, even confrontational. She showed that a model could age on her own terms, silver hair flowing, and still walk for Chanel, still inspire the new generation, still make editors weep with awe. Today, when you see designers casting unconventional faces, when gray hair appears on runways, when beauty embraces the odd and the imperfect, that's Kristen's fingerprint.
She didn't just model clothes. She modeled rebellion, survival, and the art of never apologizing. Kristen McMenamy wasn't the model who fit the mold. She was the model who broke it and rebuilt beauty in her own image.